Jamal Khashoggi murder fails to stop Britain selling arms to the Saudis. World News.
Here's a summary of the article.
Britain has pursued its assiduous courtship of Saudi Arabia despite the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi, with diplomats and Ministry of Defense officials meeting their counterparts in the kingdom to discuss closer economic, military and political ties. A delegation from the Department for International Trade visited the Eastern Province Chamber of Commerce in Dammam in Saudi Arabia on 2 October, the day Khashoggi was murdered. Alistair Long, the UK's Deputy Trade Commissioner for the Middle East and Director of Trade for Saudi Arabia, stressed that Britain was keen to create alternative markets and that Saudi Arabia is at the head of these markets. Only 24 hours earlier, Alistair Burt, the Foreign Office Minister for the Middle East, had suggested that the Khashoggi murder could affect Britain's military relationship with the Saudis and support for the war in Yemen. Rue Smith, of Campaign Against Arms Trade, said, as the crisis worsens, and even after the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, it is clear that Downing Street is more concerned with securing arms sales than promoting human rights. The pressure is likely to increase after Turkey's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, revealed that he had given recordings of Khashoggi being murdered to Saudi Arabia, the US, Germany, France and Britain. The organizers say there will be a 40% increase in the number of country pavilions, with delegations from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Britain and Taiwan.
This post received a score of 11,257, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
5,200 civilians dead from attacks, 50,000 dead from starvation and another 13 million facing famine in Yemen. What's an extra one?
According to my calculations, 13,055,201.
They did the math.
They did the monster math.
It was a graveyard graph.
What's a murdered, dismembered and acid-dissolved journalist compared to billions in arms sales to bomb Yemenis to pieces?
What's a poisoned ex-spy compared to billions in gas, oil and steel?
That too.
I see what you guys mean. 1. The US-EU is willing to sanction Russia for the poisoning of an ex-spy. 2. The US-EU is willing to sanction North Korea for the chemical assassination of Kim's half-brother. 3. The US-EU is not willing to sanction Saudi Arabia for the dismemberment and dissolving of a US-related journalist. There seems to be some double standards in policy enforcement when it comes to Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
The UK also advocated for them to be included in the UN Human Rights Council. Saudis also bomb the Yemen people with English missiles. When the BBC journalist Jeremy Paxman interviewed David Cameron on why we support the Saudis into the Human Rights Council, he stuttered and spluttered into a typical national security response after failing to answer the question 4 or 5 times. It's amazing what we tolerate as the great British public when oil and money exchange hands. Russia poisons a spy on British soil and it's in our media as if it were another 7/7 attack lol.
Oh, the British public are sick of it. Everyone I know is screaming at the government to kick the Saudis to the curb. It's a big old disconnect between the British government and people.
The Yemen problem never even makes the news. You have to search Reuters or app to find out what's happened recently. Also, you have that orangutan in the White House hogging the media in desperation like some kind of B-list celebrity intent on getting their career back on track.
Yeah, I get you. Most people know the Saudis are bad news, but few know why. Most of the criticism I mentioned has come in the last while since the Khashoggi incident. The homogenization of the news outlets is a serious problem. I've taken to watching Al Jazeera if only because they actually talk about something other than Brexit for once. Every so often it's actually preferable to hear about the massacres happening in Yemen and the raids in Israel, because then at least I'm hearing the plight of the citizens, even if the BBC and Sky News refuse to broadcast anything so depressing.
It's utterly soul-destroying to see what's happened to the Yemen country, Palestine and Syria. People think too much of politics and whether their views align with what happened and so little of people. I spoke to a man from Syria the other day and he came here fleeing the war and desperately wants to go back home, but it is not safe. He was driving a bus with him and his family on it when rebel Syrian fighters opened fire on it, killing his entire family and wounding him. He had 4 gunshot wounds all over his arms and legs. It's amazing to think people wanted them to drown in the sea and called them cockroaches and terrorists before they even reached safety.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to Speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.